Good evening. You're watching the news from the Sultanate of Oman television. First, the headlines. 25 people are killed and many others wounded in a suicide attack targeted Imam Sadiq Mosque in the capital city of Kuwait. 100 civilians and 40 Daesh militants are killed in Daesh infiltration in the northern Syrian town of Ain al-Arab Kobani. And coalition airstrikes hit Houthi rebel positions in various cities in Yemen. Headlines and now the news in detail. His Majesty Sultan Qaboos has sent a cable of greetings to His Excellency President Ismail Omar Guelleh of Djibouti on his country's independence anniversary. Kuwaiti authorities announced that 25 people were killed and 202 others wounded in a suicide attack targeted Imam Sadiq Mosque in the capital city, Kuwait. The Interior Ministry said that a suicider blasted himself amongst worshippers as they were performing Friday prayers. Daesh group claimed responsibility for the deadly explosion. Meanwhile, Kuwaiti Prime Minister Sheikh Jaber al-Mubarak al-Sabah said that the suicide bombing at the mosque was an attempt to threaten the country's national unity. Tunisia's Interior Ministry said today 28 people were killed in a beach attack. The dead were mostly tourists after gunfire erupted on a beach near the hotels in the coastal resort city of Suez. Interior Ministry spokesman Mohammed Ali Arl said security forces intervened immediately and killed one of the attackers, while others fled the scene. Suez, some 150 kilometers from Tunis, is a popular resort from both Tunisians and Europeans. Kurdish fighters have besieged Daesh members who entered the northern Syrian town of Ain al-Arab Kobani, activists said today, adding that 2 days of fighting have left more than 100 civilians dead, as well as 40 Daesh militants. According to Kurdish officials, the militants infiltrated the town yesterday by wearing Syrian rebel uniforms and carrying flags of the mainstream Free Syrian Army to deceive Kurdish defenders. They then launched their attack by setting off 3 car bombs and taking up positions inside the city. Ain al-Arab Kobani town was besieged by Daesh group for months earlier this year, but Daesh forces were driven out by Kurdish militiamen 6 months ago. A UN spokesman said today that United Nations envoy will hold talks in Kuwait and Saudi Arabia in the coming days on a draft peace proposal for the Yemen, with the aim of reaching a preliminary agreement with Houthi fighters. Meanwhile, 9 Houthi rebels were killed in airstrikes launched by Arab coalition on various targets in the capital Sana'a. Airstrikes also hit rebel positions in the southern city of Atak, the northern rebel stronghold Sada, and Lahj, one of the gateways to Aden. At least 4 civilians were killed when the Houthis shelled a residential area in a southern port city of Aden. The fighting in Yemen has killed more than 2,800 people and displaced more than 1 million people. With next week's deadline for an Iran nuclear deal fast approaching, U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry headed back to the talks in Vienna today. This time leaning on crutches, Kerry left Washington amid mounting debate over the wisdom of an agreement with Iran. A senior U.S. official said at the end was in sight that could lead to an agreement. The official said U.S. believed that the technical solutions exist to resolve every issue that remains, but those solutions would require very critical choices by Iran's leadership. Kerry's meeting in Vienna will begin tomorrow. In addition to talks with Iran's Foreign Minister Mohammad Javad Zarif, he is also expected to see French Foreign Minister Laurent Fabius. Foreign ministers from the 4 other nations of the negotiating table, Russia, China, Britain and Germany, are also expected to join as they try to bridge differences between the sides of limits Tehran must accept on its nuclear program in exchange for the lifting of economic sanctions. The United Nations Refugee Agency say today that the European Union's decision on the migrant crisis would need to be followed by concrete commitments from member states to ease the pressure on Italy and Greece. European leaders argued into the early hours today over how to handle the crisis in Mediterranean, agreeing a plan to share out the care of desperate people fleeing war and poverty in North Africa and the Middle East. They eventually agreed a voluntary scheme aimed at taking in 60,000 people and granting an exclusion for Hungary, which had earlier described the plan as absurd. The International Organization for Migration said that in all, 153,000 migrants have entered Europe by land, air and sea this year, a jump of 149% compared to the same period last year. Still to come in our news bulletin. An Omani motorbike rider reached Lebanon in 4 days after covering a distance of more than 3,000 kilometers. Welcome back to the news. The Ministry of Endowments and Religious Affairs organized an activation course for reciting Holy Quran with annotation in different wilayas of the governorates of North Batna. The activation course highlighted the general provisions of recitation of Holy Quran. The aim of organizing the course was to uplift the level of imams and khatibs in reciting Holy Quran with intonation. The Omani motorbike rider Maher Khalid Al-Barwani reached the top of mountains of Lebanon, cutting a distance of more than 3,000 kilometers in 4 days. The Omani rider met there with a France Rider Lebanon team, which is concerned about tourism and environment. He visited all historical and touristic places in Lebanon with his team. The main goal of the journey to Lebanon is to promote the touristic potentials of the Sultanate. Heavy rainfall has battered parts of India's northwest, triggering floods and landslides in the country. At least 81 people have died in Gujarat so far after almost 3 days of heavy rain. Flash floods have swept through villages and many have lost their possessions, including cattle. People living in low-lying areas have been advised to shift to higher grounds. Excessive monsoon rainfall has inundated several low-lying areas. Baksara city of Amreli was flooded with 27 inches of water. Floods wreaked havoc in northern states of Uttarakhand, where thousands of Hindu pilgrims are stranded. A flood caused by heavy rains has swept Russia's Black Sea resort of Sochi that hosted the 2014 Winter Games, killing one man and causing major damage and disruptions. The victim's body was found during salvage works during yesterday's floods. The torrential rains caused rivers flowing through the city to burst banks and sweep the streets of Sochi, smashing fences and garages. Numerous cars were carried away by streams. The flooding also cut railway traffic and swept the city's airport. Now for the general weather forecast. Partly cloudy to cloudy skies will prevail over the coastal areas of nearby mountains of the Governorate of Dhofar with chances of intermittent drizzles. Rest of the Sultanate will have clear skies with accumulated clouds pushing towards the Governorates of South Sharqiya and Worcester. Winds will be southwesterly to moderate to active along the coast of Arabian Sea, while it will be northwesterly to westerly light to moderate, occasionally active along the rest of the Sultanate. Seas along the coast of Arabian Sea will be rough with a maximum wave height of 5 meters, and rest of the coast it will be moderate with a maximum wave height of 2 meters. This is the Sultanate of Oman television. Before we enter tonight's bulletin, here are the main points once again. 25 people are killed and many others wounded in a suicide attack targeted Imam As-Sadiq Mosque in the capital city of Kuwait. 100 civilians and 40 Daesh militants are killed in Daesh infiltration in the northern Syrian town of Ain al-Arab Kobani. And coalition airstrikes hit Houthi rebel positions in various cities in Yemen. With that, we come to the end of tonight's news bulletin. From all of us here at the studio and the newsroom, it's good night.